So my name is Craig Crossland. I'm the Senior Associate Dean for Academic Programs here at the Mendoza College of Business. On behalf of Dean Martin Kremers and the entire college, it really does give me the greatest pleasure to be able to welcome Mr. Dan Helfrich to Notre Dame as part of the 2023 Dean Speaker Series. Mr. Helfrich is the Chair and Chief Executive Officer of Deloitte Consulting. Here at Notre Dame, as in so many places around the world, Deloitte Consulting truly doesn't need an introduction. It's the largest management consultancy in the world, with more than 90,000 professionals. Deloitte Consulting consistently attracts plaudits, awards, recognition from the business and popular press. LinkedIn has named the company one of the world's most in-demand employers. Business Week described Deloitte Consulting as the best place to start a career. For some of you who may be starting a career soon, I encourage you to listen carefully today. Maybe even more important for those of us at Notre Dame, we're very proud to say that Deloitte Consulting, one of our most important and valued corporate partners. This isn't just in Mendoza, but in the university as a whole. Part of the relationship we're especially proud of is the Notre Dame Deloitte Center for Ethical Leadership, which we opened in 2011. Let me just say a couple more words about Mr. Helfrich. His background, he's been at Deloitte Consulting since 1998. He served in his current role since mid-2019. Prior to taking on the CEO role, he led Deloitte's government business for about 4 years. He's widely recognized as a dynamic, innovative leader and problem solver. He works tirelessly to foster a culture of inclusion and equity in his organization. He received his undergraduate degree and his MBA degree from Georgetown University. And in the most recent spring, he also added an honorary doctorate to that, which he received when he was the commencement speaker at Georgetown. Among his many other accomplishments when he was at Georgetown, he also served as the captain of the Georgetown men's soccer team. One of the things I find most impressive, actually, is maybe unrelated to his CEO role. Even to today, Mr. Helfrich still serves as the play-by-play announcer for the Georgetown Hoyas soccer team, which I think is quite a remarkable achievement. When they won the national title in 2019, he even received a ring, so congratulations on that. So even though some of us at Notre Dame might maybe prefer that he had chosen to attend at a different Catholic university, I've learned that he does have strong Notre Dame links. His father attended Notre Dame, his mother attended St. Mary's. At breakfast this morning, we actually heard that at one point in the distant past, his mother dated Joe Theismann. We think that was before she got married. On LinkedIn earlier this week, he wrote, "Can't wait to be on my second favorite college campus in the world on Friday." So at Notre Dame, we're kind of competitive, so maybe we'll take that as a challenge. So let's see if we can do what we can to see if we can get just one place higher in his hierarchy by the end of his visit. So once again, we're so grateful to be able to welcome Mr. Helfrich here to Notre Dame. I wonder if you'd please join with me in giving him a Notre Dame welcome.
Thank you, Craig. Craig stole like half my material, so in my intro. It is a real thrill to be at an institution I hold in very deep regard. Indeed, I am the son of a Notre Dame St. Mary's couple. My parents actually got married in college, supposedly lived in some apartment above a cookie factory in downtown South Bend. I don't know that that's a real story, but that's what they've told me for the 47 years I've been alive. There's 3 things I thought I'd talk about today before I open it up, because when I'm with a group like this, I'd rather hear what's on your mind and what you want to talk about. And contrary to what you might think of consultants, you won't see a single slide from me today. And I actually am not planning on talking about Deloitte at all. So if you want to ask questions about Deloitte or about slides, I'm happy to take them. But the 3 questions that I thought might be interesting to this group are, what's the climate amongst business leaders today, since I get a chance to spend a lot of time with CEOs and government executives. And then I thought there might be 2 future questions you might be interested in. The first is, what do I think of as the future of the consulting profession and where that's headed? And then more broadly, what do I think are what are the skills that the enterprise leaders of the future regardless of what field you go into. What do I think those leaders need? But before that, yeah, a couple other things about me. You see me, and you might see there's a middle-aged male white CEO. You've seen a few of those before, but I think it's really important to understand the human behind everybody you interact with, and I actually think in our world today we don't do enough of that. So you wouldn't think, looking at me, that I'm part of a multiracial family, but actually these amazing parents, these Notre Dame St. Mary's parents, adopted my 3 siblings from really tricky life circumstances, and there were 4 of us boys in middle-class suburbia, and we became 7, and I had a sister, and we suddenly had a sibling with disabilities, and I had a black brother. And the gift that these incredible parents of mine gave are the foundation of lots of how I think and how I lead relative to what inclusion really means and what it really means to understand and appreciate the lived experiences that people have. And yes, as Craig alluded to, as I was deciding what to do coming out of school, I was debating between an ESPN job and Deloitte. I'd always wanted to be a broadcaster, and against the advice of every single person in my life, I turned down the ESPN job to join Deloitte. Something in my instinct told me that this was the right place for me. But for 19 years, I've broadcast every single Georgetown men's soccer game at home for 19 years. So before I had some fancy CEO title, before I was a senior person at Deloitte, I decided that my well-being was important and needed to take precedent over Deloitte's, and that I could have the confidence to say, these things matter to me, and I'm actually going to have the confidence to do something a little different, to cut against the grain. And on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, if the CEO said, Dan, we have a meeting, I'd say, I'm sorry, can I show up tomorrow because I'm going to be broadcasting Georgetown versus Syracuse? And to Deloitte's credit, they didn't throw me out on my ear. 19 years, every single game. Okay, so I get the privilege to spend a lot of time with a lot of important people in the world, whether those are CEOs or, as I said, government executives. And what's the conversation like right now? What's the conversation like right now? I would tell you that the mentality of the executives that I talk to, I would describe as confident anxiety. Confident anxiety. Confident in the business they run or the organization they run and the prospects for the future, but incredibly anxious about the external environment they're facing. So internal confidence, external anxiety makes for a really sort of strange cocktail. So what's the external anxiety? It's political, uncertainty about regulation, uncertainty about Washington speaker and other dynamics. It's geopolitical. If you're running a large multinational organization, you're absolutely thinking about and worried about and contemplating how geopolitical dynamics, whether those dynamics are with China or those dynamics are in the Middle East, it gives anxiety. And then there is absolutely social anxiety as a chief executive. I feel it. How do you navigate in this incredibly nuanced, interesting, complex, and for many people, very emotionally raw moment? How do you navigate that? And so it's confident anxiety. And so what it means is businesses today are a little more reluctant to make big multi-year investments than they would have been a few years ago. And so some people are being a little more tentative as they deal with the anxiety part. But what the confidence means, and for those who are students here thinking about employment, et cetera, what the confidence is you can forecast 12, 18, 24 months from now a really great environment that people are confident to be investing in. But now, if you look at a 3 to 6 to 9 month view, it's a little bit uncertain. Okay, so let's talk about the future of the consulting profession. So when most of you think about consulting, you think about a profession of advice. And when most of you think about consultants, i.e. the humans who practice consulting, you think about business school graduates, either undergrad or graduate, that get on a plane on a Monday and come back on a Thursday and do this advice work along the way. I would say both of those paradigms, both of what consultants do and who the consultants are in a period of dramatic change. And neither of those paradigms will be the paradigms of the profession as we go forward. And I would submit to you that the consulting organizations who are winning now and will win in the future will actually be willing to press fast forward on evolving from the advice business and evolving in how you think about who a consultant is and what they look like. So, does advice matter? Of course advice matters. People need experts in a field to sit across the table with them and debate issues, etc. But what the clients of ours are telling us is advice by itself is inadequate. And so the profession is going to a solution business from an advice business. And a solution business, it infuses advice and data and technology and real-world application and understanding of unique, what we call sector issues. So when you show up on day one with a client, you have this pre-built solution and knowledge that gives you a head start. The consulting business of yesteryear, you started with the classic clean sheet of paper. That was the beauty of the profession. Now the expectation is that you start with something. So, and when I say sector, what's a sector? Well, it means that if I'm proposing to a fast casual restaurant, that I actually have a detailed perspective about the trends in the industry and the trends in technology that are going to impact things like drive-thrus. Like that expertise is required. If I'm consulting to or thinking about how to help a hospital, I need people who understand pharmacy and who understand the business processes that sit behind pharmacy. That's what our clients are demanding of us. And so then if you move that into the second part of the question, who are the consultants? Then you need consultants who are much more diverse than the consultants that you think about when you think about the person that looks like me and has an education like mine showing up and getting on a plane on a Monday. We need engineers, we need nurses, we need anthropologists, we need doctors, we need veterans who've served in combat to help us advise the Department of Defense on what they're navigating. And we need liberal arts educated students and computer scientists and architects and engineers. We need them all. Because if you're going to serve the clients who expect this pre-built knowledge and sophistication together, then you need to be looking for a much wider array of people. And that's one of the reasons we love Notre Dame, is because I can get all those types of people here. And many of them who have infused multiple of those disciplines into the way that they into the way that they think and the way that they learned. That's what we need. It also means that we need, again, differently than we have in the past, we need people who are doing consulting as a second career versus a first career. So we have people who've been a practicing nurse for 25 years who decide their next chapter is helping life sciences or healthcare companies. So it changes the way that you have to run a company and the way you think about training and the way you think about onboarding new consultants. It's different if you're a 22-year-old graduating from Mendoza or a superior school like Georgetown, and versus if you're in your mid-40s having had an incredible career as a nurse or a doctor or a member of the armed forces. So my ask of people when they think about the profession is that they change the paradigm both of what work is done and who does the work. And then inevitably people are curious about how the work gets done. So I'll address that before going to sort of the last topic around leadership. The pandemic absolutely did change everything about the rhythm of our work. So it used to be that, and I'm going to generalize, it used to be that the average consulting project had a rhythm of people who, from a client and Deloitte, sat together most weeks in the same space and solved problems together. The pandemic obviously changed that, but interestingly, it hasn't returned. Why hasn't it returned? Well, the truth is, a lot of people expected, me included, that the quality of the work we did would go down if you moved from mostly in person to mostly or fully remote. The quality of our work has not gone down. In fact, in many ways that we measure productivity and quality, it's actually gone up, which is pretty interesting to think about. So that's part of it. The second thing is the preferences of our people, which matter a lot to me. I'm always pulsing the preferences of our people. Our people have said they're the happiest with their rhythms of work that they've ever been. So that's an interesting thing. By the way, including a good chunk of the 22 to 26-year-olds who you might have thought said, boy, I want to be traveling every week, et cetera. There's some of those people that do want that and are missing it, but there's a huge chunk of them that are happy with the more sporadic travel. So the job for us, and I think the job of all companies right now, is to figure out how you somehow find the best of both worlds, that you create flexibility and preference for individuals to work in a rhythm and in a way that suits them, and in our case, that suits them and their clients, but that you find enough in-person moments and moments of true human connection to develop skills that you just don't develop as quickly or clearly remotely. Relationship development skills, skills of navigating conflict, things like that. And so I told a group of your faculty earlier today, in the world right now, there's kind of three buckets of companies or organizations on work policy. Bucket one is, screw it, it's too complicated. I'm going to send a memo. Everybody has to do the same thing. So that's group number one. So everyone go in 5 days a week. Everybody go in Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. There's a lot of versions. There's if your last name starts with A through H, come in on Mondays. Like, there are all these policies, but we're going to be super prescriptive. The inverse of that, of course, is this is way too complicated. So everybody do whatever they want. And then the middle group, which is where I fall and we fall, is it's actually worthwhile to be nuanced in the policies that you create and to try to find something that balances flexibility and preference and in-person connection. And while that is the hardest, because it requires the most nuance and the most decentralized management, I think at the end of the day, it will prove to be the most enduring and the thing that allows people and organizations to move forward thoughtfully. But again, there's really smart people and really talented executives who are in all three of those camps. Okay, so last thing, let's talk about leaders of the future. So you all are leaders of the future. Notre Dame is creating leaders of the future. It's in our mission statement here. So I want to describe a few things that I think are underappreciated, underdiscussed, and underinvested in terms of leaders of the future. And my message is for you as individuals and for you as an institution, these are things that if you focus and invest in them, you will have more prosperity and make a bigger impact. The first thing is we need better enterprise communicators. What does Dan think a great enterprise communicator is? It is someone who can communicate in a relatable, authentic way, in writing and verbally, in a one-on-one conversation, in a small group session, and on a really big stage. It's someone who can communicate factual messages and inspirational messages, someone who can communicate negative and direct messages, and someone who can do it all in their own voice. The number of great enterprise communicators in this world today, it is scarce. And you can do things to become a better enterprise communicator. A lot of it's about practice. A lot of it's having feedback loops. I always encourage people to take improv classes. Improv is an incredible tool to help you be good on your feet and to not be in your own head of rehearsing what you're going to say in the next sentence. You can learn things, but enterprise communicators is the first thing we need more of. And I think Notre Dame and you as individuals can give the world more of that. We also need more willing contrarians. Large institutions, academically, but I'm really talking about businesses and governments, breed conformity because there's so many smart people around you that we develop habits that say that's the way it's done, and then if I see 7 people doing it that way or saying it that way, then that must be the way to do it. And it totally suppresses innovation. And we have to teach people the confidence to be a contrarian. And being a contrarian doesn't have to be being a jerk. It doesn't have to be done disrespectfully, but it takes a certain amount of confidence to be willing to say to someone, I think there's a different way to look at it. We don't have enough contrarians, and that includes at the highest level. The third thing we need more of is we need more people who are proud of being imperfect and unsure. We need more people who are proud of being imperfect and unsure. The thing I say to my team all the time is, I am a leader in training, and Deloitte is one of the best, most imperfect institutions that exists. If you can actually be proud of being imperfect and unsure, then you get a lot of grace for being willing to change your mind, for being willing to say, I don't know, for all those things. You know, I during the pandemic, we had an every Friday call that I have about 90,000 people that work on my team. It's a lot. And every Friday during the days of the pandemic when there's so much uncertainty, probably 75% of that 90,000 got on a call with me. I was broadcasting from my laptop at my home. And those were incredibly powerful conversations. And you know what? Most of the time, I was telling them I didn't know much. But the power of saying I don't know much, or the power of saying we're going to experiment, and who knows what will happen as a result of the experiment, but I'll let you know, it's an incredibly powerful leadership attribute that very few people have. The other thing that we've done that so few people are willing to do because they see it as a sign of too much vulnerability is the thing we do is we do company-wide debates. So most organizations, the way they make decisions is you get a bunch of people, they tend to be older, who are in really big senior fancy jobs like mine, and they get in a room and they talk about things that are going to affect, in my case, all 90,000 people. So a good one of those is hybrid work policy. So instead of 15 of us deciding we were going to debate among the 15 of us and then declare what our hybrid work policy is, I said, you know what? We're going to have a 90,000 person debate. And we're going to do it in a combination of synchronous things like focus groups and asynchronous through Teams channels and otherwise. And we're not going to moderate it at all. And people are scared to death of that, right? Oh my gosh, what are people going to say? They're blah, blah, blah. And you know what happened? First of all, everyone disagreed. So that's helpful. So if you see on a controversial topic, most people disagreeing, in some ways it gives you permission to choose whatever you want. So that's helpful. But what it also did is it showed people that A, the leaders were listening, and B, that the things they thought that everyone felt who looked like them, everyone did not feel that looked like them. And so there's this assumption, right, that the 22 to 26-year-olds would want a high travel, high location together hybrid work policy. And that the senior managers, who tend to be more people who are having kids and have kids who are growing up, will be less. And you know what the data told us from the debate? That the views of the 22 to 26-year-olds and the senior managers were almost statistically the same. Now, if we just had the discussion amongst the 15 of us, no one would have had that conclusion. So this notion of being proud to be imperfect and unsure and confident enough to have a debate without knowing the way it's going to turn out is incredibly undervalued and underpracticed in the world. The final one I'll share, and I did talk about this in my Georgetown commencement speech, is the value of a horseshoe mindset. So, and I like to talk in equations to our team, and so I have this equation I talk about all the time that's horseshoes are greater than circles. Okay, so what's the difference between a horseshoe and a circle? If you just think about it visually, here's a circle and here's a horseshoe. What's the difference? Well, a horseshoe mindset means you're looking for ways for new ideas and new people and new thoughts to come in, and you're looking for ways to let the best ideas and the best people get out. There's a way into a conversation. So many people practice circle leadership and circle thinking. You get your 5 people, and you develop these really tight bonds, and it's the 5 people that know how to solve this problem, et cetera. And then guess what happens? Over time, that highly productive 5-person team becomes completely non-inclusive. And it doesn't matter, that 5-person team could have been racially or ethnically or gender identity diverse or not. But they still became non-inclusive by virtue of not allowing the best ideas and new people to come in and the best ideas and people to go out. And I see circle thinking all the time, and it prevents progress. It is at the root, I believe, and we could have a longer conversation that I won't do on mic about polarity in society. There's a lot of the horseshoe versus circle mentality that sits behind that. We could have a discussion about DEI and why we haven't made as much progress as a country and a world on inclusion. A lot of it has to do with the horseshoe mindset. And the other thing, and I'll leave you with this, is it also means organizations try to solve problems themselves because they have a circle mindset about the organization. Deloitte doesn't have all the answers. Notre Dame doesn't have all the answers. The nonprofit working on climate doesn't have all the answers. The Department of Energy doesn't have all the answers. But there's a lot of smart people in all those places who come at big issues in the world. Climate, geopolitics, supply chain, all the tough issues. There's a lot of smart people in the world who are trying to address those issues with a circle mindset as opposed to a horseshoe mindset. The people who will make the biggest change on the biggest societal topics and drive the biggest change in the world will actually have the humility to understand that the horseshoe works more effectively than the circle, and they will look outside their own walls to find the innovations that will unlock progress in meaningful ways. So 3 questions I thought might be interesting to provoke conversations, but I am happy to talk about anything with this group, from broadcasting to Deloitte to the economy to Craig's Australian accent, whatever's on people's minds.
Hi there, Dan. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Is that official Notre Dame green? It doesn't look like it.
No, it's a barber green. Tomorrow is when the green comes out.
Got it.
My name is Sam Knapp. I'm in MBA right now, and I'll be graduating next year. You spoke a lot about the skills that we should portray as leaders, and I think all of us want to become leaders eventually in our career, but none of us will start that way in our team. We're going to be followers. We're going to be members of a team, juniors. So what are some skills that we can portray as juniors on a team that really install confidence in our seniors that we're ready for the next level?
Yeah. So here's what I'd want from you. I'd want you to change that mindset. I really would. Like, inherent in the way you frame that is a concept of organizational hierarchy that I think gets us in trouble. I think you can be a leader in your first 6 months on your project. So how can you do that? Well, let's say you're on a consulting project and the project's been going on for a year when you get there, and they say, you're in charge of the status report, okay? You're now in charge of producing this weekly status report, and then someone shows you the status report that you and how you do it, and you produce it by Friday, et cetera. The leader, after a couple weeks, would say, why is the status report this way? I've just spent all this time doing it, and I've noticed that when we have a status meeting, only one of the 6 things that's in the status report is ever interesting to anybody. Or I've seen that we have 3 levels of review cycles built into the process, and review cycle 1 and 2 never has any benefit or comment that comes from it. A lot of people will notice everything I just said. The leader will say something about it. That's how you can practice being a contrarian, challenging orthodoxies, and being a leader, even from those positions. And then the other thing practically you can do is if you're working in a big company, I always advise people to pick your eyes up and find people who are innovating and creating in new ways for that organization, because inevitably, if the topic is new, the infrastructure is not built in how that thing is done. And it can be you're developing a new Gen AI-based product, but it could be something as simple as you're developing a new recruiting program for a new major at Notre Dame. And if you can find the things in an organization to be on the ground floor of that new idea, then you can practice leadership skills in a way you won't be able to when the hierarchy and infrastructure is already built. The final thing I would say that I do, which most people think is just so weird and such a odd habit, but I have found helpful, is I study press conferences, and I study tense congressional testimony, and I read emails that are written by leaders in really tricky times. And I have, for my whole career, tried on what was effective about that, how would I have done it, and actually practice it. And that has helped me. Now that I'm in situations where I'm making those decisions and I'm answering those questions, my skills are honed from a couple decades of being interested in the art of leading at scale. So you can look at messages that you've read that people have sent out, professors, companies, et cetera, with what's happening in the Middle East. You can try on for yourself how you would have done it. Try on what landed and what didn't, and what the reaction was in certain places. You will improve as a leader by putting yourself in situations that you're not actually in yet.
Hi there, thank you for being here today. My name is Morgan Gafford, and I'm a third year at the law school. I'll be joining Deloitte upon graduation.
Wow.
And
you must be the smartest person here.
Absolutely.
What office?
Chicago.
Okay.
Chicago tax. Very thankful.
Awesome.
But my question is a little more general. What has been your most rewarding experience as a CEO?
Look, the most rewarding thing for me, I don't know if it classifies as an experience, but you can tell me, but the most rewarding thing for me is when I realize that I've made an impact on someone's life that I've never met. So think about that for a second. So we learn lots of things about leadership, and we use sports analogies, and we talk about leadership within the context of teams, right? And when you think about how people teach you to lead, most of the time it's how you get to know the people around you and how you talk to them and understand what is important to them and how you're empathetic, et cetera. And those are all the right things. My job essentially is to inspire and connect with tens of thousands of people I will never meet. So it's a really different way of thinking about what it takes to be a great leader. And so I had this experience last year. I have a bunch of teammates in India. And so I had an experience last year. I was in Bangalore, and a woman walked up to me as I was getting in the elevator and said, you changed my life. And she said, I told you I talk in equations. Well, one of the equations I try to get my Deloitte teammates to believe is your well-being is greater than Deloitte's well-being. Because what I'm trying to tell you is, if you're in a situation where you're feeling like there's a fundamental choice between Deloitte or something that's important to you personally, I actually want you to choose yourself, not Deloitte. And she said, I heard you talk about that with such humanity and with such clarity that when my dad was dying, I was willing to go talk to the project team, even though we were really close to a go live, and say, I just don't think I can deliver for this client because I want to be with my dad. And she said, "You changed my life because you convinced me, and I got these final weeks with my dad that I wouldn't have had." That is the feeling that makes this job worthwhile. Also not Notre Dame green, very disappointing.
Sorry, I just picked the first outfit I saw in my closet. But hi, Dan.
I was talking to him, not you.
Oh,
The Deloitte guy.
I was like, I'm wearing the old black outfit.
You look very nice. Thank you.
So much. But hi, Dan. It's so nice to meet you. My name is Eva Romero, and I'm currently a sophomore studying economics from the great big city of Chicago. And for me, as a first-generation Latina, I think it's imperative that companies are diverse and inclusive, which I think creates success. And you mentioned how DE&I initiatives at Deloitte have been working towards achieving this, but there hasn't been much progress. Why do you think that is, and how are you working towards to fix that?
Well, I appreciate, as a Latina, asking the question. I just got back from our Hispanic Latinx Summit. So we have a corporate university in Texas, and we just had 780 of my Hispanic Latinx teammates at Deloitte University talking about issues specific to the community, creating connections, et cetera, and dancing. If you want to be at a party with high quality dancing, as you'd probably appreciate, the group there now, they taught me to salsa and like bachata or something. Bachata. My bachata, very poor. But I did say we haven't made the kind of progress as a society that we need to. But I believe in our organization in particular, but broadly, the last 4 years have made profound progress at making DEI a true boardroom C-level priority, not just a fake one that was on everybody's website. And that, I can tell you, that is fundamental change that has been catalyzed. And so I feel quite good about that and the progress that will come with it. I think what some leading organizations are doing, I'll give you 2 examples that we're doing that a bunch of our clients have watched and are copying. The first is we put out a transparency report at a really detailed level of data that takes a bunch of data around composition of the workforce, promotions in the workforce, and things like supplier diversity, and breaks it down at a fine level and shares that data not just with ourselves, but we publish it on our Deloitte website. And so we have 5-year goals, for example, on what's the composition of our workforce that's going to be Hispanic, Latinx, it's going to be Black, and we publish that. And we don't change the goals based on how we're doing. And so you'll see greens and yellows and reds in that report. That level of accountability, I think, is a best practice. And then the other thing we've done that I think can be applied in even academic communities is we've done wide-scale education using the concept of say this, not that. And so we've done it for women, we've done it for the Hispanic Latinx community, and it started with our Black community, and it started with the notion that there's a lot of dialogue and words that people are using that are ignorant. And ignorant because people don't understand the impact that those words and that language is having on people. And so we had everyone at Deloitte go through a say this, not that, for example, related to our Black community, and had a conversation with everybody about how to not talk about natural hair. Think about this 175-year-old Deloitte institution actually helping people understand that their ignorant comments around a woman's hair carries with it a lot of things that they wouldn't have thought of. I think that's what leading organizations will do, and I think those kinds of things will create more progress going forward.
Hi, my name is Will. I'm a freshman here studying philosophy. I was wondering if there was any lessons you learned or failures you had maybe early in your career, that 22 to 26 range, that you think would be helpful for us to hear.
I think I learned, I know I learned that making yourself indispensable is a bad strategy. So I used to get career advice that you got to make yourself indispensable to the client, indispensable to this partner, meaning that you're the center of the universe and the most important thing for those people. That's the way to get ahead. And then 2 years into my career, I'm kind of bored with what I'm doing, and I feel ready to move to the next thing. And guess what? I'd made myself indispensable. And suddenly, the fact that Dan's ready to go do something else isn't super interesting because there's a client that I'm indispensable to and a Deloitte team that I'm indispensable to. So the notion of trying to make yourself indispensable, when you actually think about it, it's pretty self-centered. And once I was able to pivot that mindset, it opened up a different way of thinking about career, and frankly, a different way of thinking about how you build others around you so that the team's indispensable, not the person.
Hi, Dan. My name is Mary Catherine McBride. I'm in the Masters of Management program. And my question for you is more personal. Wall Street Journal had an article this week about the routines of CEOs that make them successful. I was wondering if you had any morning routines or other that you think contribute to your success on a daily basis.
Well, I don't know if I'm successful, but I'm a everyday exerciser, like every day, not a few days a week. I'm an everyday exerciser. I'm a smoothie a day person. So and one of the things, this is certainly not something I talk about publicly often, but bananas are in most smoothies. And I hate bananas, like I really detest them. And so I've learned that blueberries are actually the most fruit substitute to keep thickness in smoothies. People think avocados, but it's actually blueberries. And so a blueberry, almond or peanut butter, protein, oat milk smoothie is a part of the daily routine. And then when I'm home, and I travel a fair amount, but when I'm home, carpool is a huge routine for me. I have 4 teenagers. Actually, my oldest just turned 20. And I love doing carpool because it reorients me to things outside of work. It's quality time with kids. So those are my routines. None of which were in the Wall Street Journal article, I'm certain. Blueberries are the key. But blueberries stain really badly, and I'm kind of a messy sipper, so my clothes budget has had to go up since the blueberries.
Good afternoon. My name is Johan. I'm a senior here at Notre Dame. We'll be starting at Deloitte next fall in Dallas, which
Nice.
I'm very excited for. My question for you is, as a CEO, how do you think your experience have helped change your view on the client service industry?
Yeah, so how to change my views on the client service industry, it goes back a little bit to my advice to solutions. I think we need to judge ourselves by outcomes, not inputs. The fact that we created some great deliverable is interesting, but if it doesn't create an outcome, then at the end of the day, the return on investment is negative, low, no. And so how you orient people to actually viewing success based on someone else's outcomes, based on your own effort, is a really interesting paradigm. And so what I'm trying to do as the CEO of the biggest, best consulting firm is try to change the industry so that more contracting is based on outcomes and not based on inputs and deliverables, which is harder to do than it may look. What else? Maybe 2 or 3 more.
Hi, Dan, first year MBA. My question is, how does Deloitte or specifically for Deloitte consultants, how do they harness the power of AI in delivering results for their clients? And also, what are some of the guardrails that they have in place in terms of like ethical and also risk standpoint?
Yeah, so this was a test to see. I didn't talk about AI in my remarks just to see if it would come up. And so fortunately, with 5 minutes to go, otherwise I would have lost a bet. So the first thing you should know is we set up a Institute for Trustworthy AI 5 years ago, not 5 months ago, because we believe that leadership in AI requires fundamentally leadership in ethics. And so we hired one of the world's most renowned AI ethicists, Bina Amanath, to lead that institute. Now, to your first question about how are we harnessing it, well, we're harnessing it every day. And there is this interesting mix in the community and the dialogue of fear and excitement when it comes to generative AI. Fear that it's going to take jobs, excitement about the possibilities that are created. If I'm in the outcome business, which I just said I was, then if I can deliver faster outcomes that are at the same or higher quality, then that is a really good thing. Because I'm providing better outcomes to clients in a more efficient period of time. So at the end of the day, we're excited about generative AI. I'm excited that I can train models in an ethical way and produce computer code at, depending on the topic, 20, 30, 40, 50% more efficiency than I could a year ago. I'm excited about that because it creates better outcomes faster. My responsibility then is to say, if we've freed up capacity, how do we use that capacity for good? Whether that's by reskilling that capacity, whether it's by redeploying it into other areas, like that's the challenge. We are going to create efficiency and we are going to free time by doing this. I think that's a beautiful thing as long as we all unite that we're going to use that for good and we're going to have interesting people more free to do interesting things. That's the way I look at it. And so for me, the opportunity part of the equation greatly exceeds the fear part. One more. All the hands go down as we get close to noon. People have places to be.
Hi, Dan. Mike Sullivan.
Hi, Mike.
I flew in just to listen to your speech and watch a football game. A quick two-part question. Notre Dame soccer is having quite a great season, as is Georgetown.
Both the men and the women.
If they were to meet, who would win? And secondly, can you talk a little bit about the future of Georgetown's program based on the incoming freshman class?
All right, so I know Mike, so he's sending me a softball. I actually sat by myself in the rain and watched the women last night. Was anyone else there? Okay, so I think the women are awesome. I love the way they play. Notre Dame would beat the Georgetown women, and Georgetown would handily defeat the Notre Dame men. And the Notre Dame coach and the Georgetown coach are really good friends. Chad, the Notre Dame coach, is a Dartmouth guy, and Brian, and what Mike's referring to is it is a surreal experience for me that I've been doing it for 19 years, but my 18-year-old son is now on the team 30 years after his dad playing at the same place. So being in the broadcast booth with your son on the field is a pretty surreal experience. So, but they're playing Marquette tomorrow, and so I was debating, do I go see Notre Dame Pittsburgh, or do I go to Marquette and watch Georgia play Marquette in soccer? And I'm staying here. So, all right. Well, I really appreciate this group. I appreciate this institution. In many biological ways, this institution created me. So I appreciate everything you stand for. Cheers. Have a great rest of the weekend.
I wonder if we could finish thanking you again for being here for just an outstanding talk. I feel like that should have been a TED talk. I hope we were recording that. There are no bananas in here, but there's a coupon for a smoothie if you want.
Thanks, partner. Cheers. Thanks, Craig.